House of EdTech, Episode 51.
I'm Marios, and you're listening to the House of EdTech with my daddy, Chrissy.
The House of EdTech podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get your free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/House of EdTech. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nessie, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And yes, here we are, the end of year 2 of the House of EdTech. Welcome to the 2015 App Smackdown. Oh, this is going to be a great episode. This is jam-packed with awesome content, tips, tools, recommendations. This episode is what it's all about, and I'm so glad you could join me. First, this episode is being released here on December 20th, 2015, so I just want to take a moment to wish you all a happy holiday, happy new year, and my best to you and your loved ones this holiday season. Before we get into the App Smackdown, first a couple of announcements. Thank you so much to Mark Gridnell, the newest supporter of the podcast on Patreon. I can't say thank you enough. Mark, I have told you thank you in email and also on Twitter. Your support really means a lot to me, and I do appreciate it. If you'd like to become a patron and an awesome supporter of the podcast, you can do so by going to patreon.com/House of EdTech. And a couple of new iTunes reviews have come in. First, from user Philly Fan, quote, "I've been listening to this podcast since the beginning. I rarely give reviews as often as I should, and this deserves the 5 stars for sure. Chris Nessie is very relatable and brings great insights from the world of education technology. Thank you so much for the kind words, Philly Fan. I really appreciate that." And another review came in from user LJ307TP. Quote, "I've only been listening to podcasts for about 6 months. I found this podcast early on, and I cannot say enough about how much I have gained. I have learned about technology, and I have incorporated it into various things I do in my classroom. I have expanded my personal learning network, and I have discovered many other educators to learn from. Thank you so much for the kind words, LJ307TP. I'm glad you're getting a lot out of the podcast, and reviews like these do let me know that I'm doing a good job, and they encourage me to continue to create content. So if you haven't left a review yet, make sure you do so in iTunes, and I'd really appreciate that. Now it's time to get started here. It's time for this year's App Smackdown. And just because I'm a sports guy, here's a couple of stats about what's about to happen here in episode number 51. This year's App Smackdown features 19 contributors, 19 individual people who have contributed something from all across the U.S., and we even have an international submission, which I was so excited to get. In total, there are over 30 recommendations that are about to come your way. You don't need to write anything down. You can get the overview right now, and then just head over to chrisnessie.com and view the show notes for this episode. And here's a quick hitting recommendation to get you started based on the idea of the show notes. You can have them emailed to you every episode automatically. Just head over to chrisnessie.com and you should be prompted to enter your email address. Don't worry, I'm not going to spam you. This is just going to send the show notes to you every time I release an episode. So you get all the links, the House of EdTech VIP, all the resources from every episode will come to your inbox automatically when I release an episode. And now, without further ado, let's get into this year's House of EdTech App Smackdown. First up in this year's EdTech Smackdown, let's get right into it, and welcome to the program, Mr. Adam Schoenbart.
Hello, Mr. Nessie and House of EdTech. This is Adam Schoenbart here at Mr. Schoenbart on Twitter, aschoenbart.com, and I'm here with my recommendation for the House of EdTech App Smackdown. I'm going with something a little different here, and I'm going to recommend the Google Sites gadget called Awesome Table. And so most of us teachers hopefully are using Google Forms to collect data from students, whether it's assessment or contact information or reflections or feedback or whatever the case may be. Awesome Table is a really, really great gadget which allows you to take all the data on the spreadsheet and index it on a website. You can make the website public, private, set it up however you'd like, but you can search any of the qualities in the spreadsheet for anything you want. So if you have a name category, you can type in someone's name and every kid named Jason will pop up if that's what you're searching for. Or if you have a category for age, you can check off 14 and 15 and only the 14 and 15-year-olds will come up. It makes an indexable database out of any form responses. It is wildly easy to use, and there is a great tutorial for it online by the guys who created it. Again, it's called Awesome Table, and it is a Google Sites gadget. You can see an example of it on the educationcalendar.com. It's how we indexed all the data for you guys to search and add. So check out Awesome Table for any of your databasing and sorting of form data needs. It's very, very cool and very simple to use.
Thank you for checking in with that awesome recommendation, Adam. And if you haven't checked out the Education Calendar, you need to get over there. It is a super valuable resource. Here at the House of EdTech, I'm very happy to support what Adam is doing over on the educationcalendar.com. Next up is a familiar voice you've heard here on the podcast, a good friend of the program. Take it away, Derek Larson.
Hey everybody, this is Derek Larson with edtechbabble.net, chiming in with a great tip for Chris Nessie and the House of EdTech. One of my favorite apps to use when I'm out and about and keeping track of my thoughts is not an app at all. It's actually a notebook and a pen. What notebook do I carry? Well, you can carry any notebook you want, but I prefer the Field Notes brand notebook. Small enough to put in your back pocket, durable enough to last, plus it's just great. You get 3 of them for $10, and they're amazing. They handle really, really, really well, plus they have great designs that come out seasonally, and you can go out and pick them up, or you just go with the standard craft notebook, which is what I often carry, and I love it. It's great. What kind of pen do I use with that? Well, you can use any pen you want, but personally, I like to carry the Uniball Sigmo Micro 207, which is a 0.5 millimeter pen. Gives you a nice fine line. I really, really enjoy it. The nice thing about this pen is it's cheap enough that if you lose it, you're not going to beat yourself over the head, but yet it's nicer than just the standard big stick. If you want to go a little bit more than that, I have another pen I use that is fantastic. It's a Fisher Space pen. It's great because it will work any way you hold the pen. It's made to work in space. And so you literally can write upside down, in the rain, however you want to go. It's going to work great. I carry both those pens on me at all times because I feel like pulling out a notebook and writing on a piece of paper with a pen is the best way for me to remember something. Part of just physically writing it down helps more than just typing it on my phone. So I would recommend not overlooking some of the analog tools when we go about our day-to-day lives, because sometimes they're the best. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Derek. And we will hear from Derek a couple of more times throughout this episode. Next up, we have one of the awesome members of the Education Podcast Network, podcaster and middle school principal, Jethro Jones. Take it away, Jethro.
Hello, this is Jethro Jones from Kodiak, Alaska, and I am the host of the Transformative Principal Podcast. The app that I recommend for the App Smackdown is an app called Overcast, which helps you listen to podcasts. And what I love about this app is that it speeds up what you're listening to in a way that sounds very natural. So it doesn't sound like Mickey Mouse or Chipmunks talking. It sounds really, really good. It takes out pauses and silences and basically speeds everything up. Really great app for listening to podcasts, which I love to do, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Awesome, Jethro. As you guys know, I do use Overcast. Overcast is free. And if you're looking for a new podcast to check out, you have to check out Transformative Principal. Whether you're aspiring to be an educational leader, principal, or not, it's a great podcast. Jethro talks to some awesome people in the world of education, and you have to go check out his site, jethrojones.com, and he is Jethro Jones on Twitter. Thank you, Jethro. Now, if you're not awake yet, get ready because this next contribution is going to wake you up. Lee Araoz has a lot of energy. Take it away, Lee.
Hi, app fans. Lee Araoz here from Araoz Learning. I'm an instructional coach, K-12 technology coordinator, and staff developer who blogs about highly effective technology tools and teaching strategies at thegoldenageofeducation.com. The app I'm sharing today is Smore, a digital flyer construction tool. That's Smore, SMORE.com. This is a free web-based application that I've used to maximize parent-teacher student communication in my classroom. Educators today all need a digital presence, and Smore is one of the easiest ways to create one. Smore digital flyers are really actually mini websites with a short, easy-to-remember link. Teachers can add the following things to their flyers. They can add text, pictures, and links can be embedded. YouTube videos can be easily added.
Is there s'more, Daddy?
Audio clips can be added, Emma, as well as forms and surveys.
Is there s'more?
I've even added anchor charts and exemplars, student exemplars. PowerPoints and keynote presentation links can also be embedded in these beautiful digital newsletters. If you go to my website, thegoldenageofeducation.com, you can see examples of these wonderful flyers.
Thank you so much, Lee. Sorry to get you cut off there, but the audio kind of cut out a little bit. So, and thank you to your daughter, Emily. Emily, next year, you need to submit your own. So make sure that you bug Dad all year and contribute something to the House of EdTech next year in 2016. Next up, another former guest of the program back in episode 48. So really more recently, Dani, Kennis, and I had a great conversation, and this part of our conversation didn't make the episode, not because it was bad, but because when we were talking about it, I thought, this is a great recommendation. So I told Dani, everything we just talked about in the last couple of minutes, I'm going to just use it in the App Smackdown. And of course, she said yes. So here's a little, I guess, the director's cut from episode 48. So here's something that wasn't there, and here it is now. That's the best way that I can put it.
Oh, and my newest one, this is my favorite, Bitmoji.
Go on, explain. I've never heard of it.
What?
Go for it.
Oh my God.
What is
oh my God.
I'm not even going to Google it. Dani, tell me about Bitmoji.
Okay, Bitmoji makes a cartoon version of yourself with these cheesy little, not even cheesy, they're hilarious expressions and faces, and you can insert them into text messages or emails. So what I'm planning on doing is grading my students' work using Bitmojis at the end and kind of giving them some feedback that way. It's just this really fun kind of interactive way of showing your emotions, basically. So the past few Fridays on the Remind app, my students have sent me Bitmojis saying, have a great weekend or TGI Friday. It's amazing, and it's so much fun to play with.
And this is a Chrome extension or add-on.
It's an extension. You can download it as an app on your phone, and then there are settings within the extension that you can put a little icon in your Gmail to insert a Bitmoji there if you want to.
Well, as you see, I mean, I'm writing this all down, so I will be checking this out.
And I expect you to send me your Bitmoji, and I hope that it looks exactly like you. That's the whole point of it. It's supposed to look exactly like you, but some of the faces and the body structures are kind of funny and a little bit silly.
You've seen my avatar in the past. You know what I'm about when it comes to avataring.
I do. I'm excited to see what you come up with. It's awesome. And they're very relevant because, like, for Halloween, they had Halloween ones. For Thanksgiving, they'll have Thanksgiving ones. Some of them are super weird, but they're very funny.
I'm down. I will check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Well, I did check out Bitmoji since we had that conversation. And if you check out my profile on Twitter, at Mr. Nessie, my avatar on Twitter is a modified version of my Bitmoji. So it is very cool. I do use it when I use Voxer and when I'm texting with my wife, Caitlin, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope you guys make your own Bitmojis and please share them with me. I would love to see cartoon versions of you. Next up, another friend of the podcast, Dan Gallagher. He has contributed a number of EdTech recommendations over the past year. So make sure you go and check out those past episodes and make sure you're connected with Dan, along with all the guests that have been on the show and all the people who have contributed today, who you've heard from and will hear from. Dan Gallagher is here to talk to us today about ScreenCastify.
Hello, Mr. Nessie, soon to be Professor Nessie. This is Dan Gallagher. You can follow me on Twitter at Gallagher_tech, or you can visit my blog at gallagher.edublogs.org. I have a recommendation for the House of EdTech, episode 51. My recommendation this year is for the extension ScreenCastify, which allows you to record anything that's happening on your screen, as well as anything you say. This is great, especially for our Chromebook students in our school. They are able to record and show what they know. Recently, I had an 8th grade teacher want to do a project and have their students kind of talk out a travel plan using Google Maps, and they wanted to record the different places they visit on the map. And so we looked at ScreenCastify, but unfortunately, at the time, their way of being COPA compliant was to specify anyone over the age of 13 could use it. I reached out to them, we worked through it, and now anyone of any age can use ScreenCastify, especially if you're under 13, if it's for educational purposes. So I definitely would recommend taking a look at ScreenCastify. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for contributing, Mr. Gallagher. Always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next local conference here in New Jersey. Next up, please welcome back to the microphone, Derek Larson.
Hey everybody, Derek Larson with EdTechBabble.net again. I have another great tip for today. Podcasts are fantastic, but you've got to have a great way to listen to them. Now, you can always use your built-in application on either iOS or Android, but there's so much better there. What I recommend finding an app that's going to work for you. A couple of great suggestions. I'm going to give you a couple here. Is on iOS, InstaCast is great. Overcast is another really good one. I know that's one that Chris likes and you can also get DownCast. DownCast is pretty amazing if you are both an iOS and an Android user, because DownCast is available on both platforms. It is one of the best applications you can get on Android for listening to podcasts. So if you're interested in podcasting and listening to podcasts, check out one of these great apps. They will make your podcast listening experience better, which then makes you want to listen to more. So my personal favorite right now is InstaCast on iOS, but Overcast is also pretty amazing. So go check it out, listen to some podcasts, and get on the action. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Derek. And yes, checking out third-party podcast catchers can be of a great benefit. And of course, I'm still going to stick with Overcast, but nothing that Derek has said is incorrect. So find the app that works best for you so you can enjoy the content that you're going to consume. Speaking of consuming awesome content, next up we have another podcaster, Josh Allen from the Dads in Ed podcast, which you can find over on dadsined.podbean.com. And I had the pleasure earlier this year of being a guest on the Dads in Ed podcast. So I will link to that episode in the show notes, of course. So make sure you go check that out as well. And Josh Allen, you have a recommendation, so take it away.
Mr. Nessie, this is Josh Allen, J_Allen on Twitter, tech integration specialist, co-host of the uber popular, probably second in the world behind the House of EdTech, the Dads in Ed podcast. My EdTech tool to share with you is Flipboard Magazines. Flipboard has been a fantastic way for me to not only learn new things from around the world, from all across the web. It'll curate magazines for you automatically, but then you can create your own. So I have created some around Google Apps to help me learn more about Google Apps, iPads as well. Augmented and virtual reality is something that's new to me, and so I've been working on that. So Flipboard Magazines, thanks for all you do, Mr. Nessie, and we'll see you soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing you soon too, Josh Allen. I love the podcast you guys do. And as far as Flipboard, here's a little commentary. Honestly, I really don't like Flipboard. I use it, but that's only because they bought up Zeit, which I was a huge fan of, and unfortunately Zeit finally came to an end. I'm still getting used to Flipboard. I had checked it out way back, a couple of years ago when it first came out, and I had wound up going to Zeit, but alas, Zeit is no more, so I am back to Flipboard to consume a lot of my content. Thank you for the contribution, Josh, and keep up the great work over on Dads in Ed. Next up, Mike Marotta.
Hey Chris, Mike Marotta here, Assistive Technology Specialist for Inclusive Technology Solutions. My submission for your App Smackdown is a Chrome extension called Snap and Read Universal by a company called Don Johnston. Basically gives the student that is struggling with reading text-to-speech support in any window they might be in, whether it's a website, a Google Doc, a PDF, an electronic book, including electronic Amazon books from your Kindle for your cloud reader. It gives text-to-speech support, also gives you the ability to dynamically level the text on a page so the student can click a button and it will change the reading level of the text to be more in line with where your student is reading. It does OCR, so it can scan through a piece of text that's not accessible, convert it to text, and then read it back out loud. Also gives you multi-language support through Google Translate. So if the student is an ELL student, you can change the text into the language that they are more comfortable reading. And then finally, it has a graphic organizer built into it that allows your student to go through any source, pull out information, add it to an outline, including the citations of where they got that work from. Then they can pull that work back into a Google Doc to do their writing. Pretty great tool. Snap and Read Universal. Thanks very much. Follow me on Twitter, MMATP. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. And Snap and Read Universal, I jumped the gun when I got the submission from Mike, and I immediately started to tell teachers in my school about it, and it is really powerful. So I don't want to pick one over all of them, but Snap and Read Universal might be the most powerful recommendation that you're going to get today. Next up, Brent Warner from EdTech.tv and the EdTech.tv podcast. Take it away, Brent.
Hey, Chris, this is Brent Warner at EdTech TV. I do hope everything's going well for you. I want to suggest for the App Smackdown Scannable. I've talked about this a few times on my website, but I really want to spread the word. I love it so much. I am using it every day. So Scannable is an app that is part of Evernote and part of the Evernote family. And basically all you do is you hover your phone over a piece of paper and it automatically converts it into a PDF. You don't have to have it perfectly over the phone or over the image. You can do it at an angle and it recognizes the angle for you, and you can do multiple pages all at the same time. It's really smart, and I keep feeling shocked at how clever it is and how well it works. And then what it does is it saves them all together as one PDF and ends up popping them out into a bigger single file. So it's really cool because you can export those files out into Google Drive, or you can do it into Dropbox, or whatever your choice is. So definitely recommend that, and I think it could be useful for you and for any of the listeners. So give it a try. Scannable, highly recommend it, and I'm happier and happier with it every day. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brent. And I have used Scannable. It is a very powerful tool and very useful on the iPad mini that I use. So thank you for sharing it with the audience and the House of EdTech community. Next up, if I was giving out awards, this would by far get the award for the longest recommendation. But it is also the most jam-packed. This is like a mini Smackdown by one person. So welcome for the first time to the House of EdTech, Daniel Bauer, who is also a podcaster, and his podcast, Better Leaders, Better Schools, is also a member of the Education Podcast Network. Thank you for submitting, Daniel, and let's see what you got.
Hey, Chris, this is Daniel Bauer from the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast, newest member of the Education Podcast Network. Thank you so much for warmly welcoming me to that group. So excited to be a part of it. And I have app suggestions. You might not use them all. Totally fine. But here we go. I know that you mentioned Twitter in your last show, but a new feature to Twitter, and why I'm bringing it up, is the feature of Twitter polls. So if you look at the Twitter app, either in the web or on your phone, and compose a message, you'll see a little image of a pie chart. And right there, you can ask your followers any type of question you could come up with and give them a number of options to choose from. I see this really cool as educators connect with each other, asking questions for feedback, or asking your class, asking your students, or having your students design polls too, just to get that connection going through social media. So a very cool feature on Twitter. That's the pie chart, the poll feature. Number 2 would be Screenflow. Screenflow is an amazing app that I use on my Mac laptop. And the reason I love Screenflow is I can make beautiful movies, recording from my phone and import into my computer, or grabbing a screen capture, recording, walking people through, how to use any application or compose a document, whatever you want to do, you can record your screen. But an even better feature of Screenflow is I can record myself using the phone. So if there's any type of app that I'm using in the classroom and I want to show the students exactly how to use it, and I'm flipping my classroom, I can record that very easily with Screenflow and show that to my students. I think it's fairly cheap. It's about $99, but well worth the price. It's an amazing app. That's Screenflow. Number 3 is an app called Grammarly. I use the free version through Firefox, and they have a Chrome extension too. You can do the paid version as well. It has a lot more features, but Grammarly is a really interesting app that you use through your web browser because it tells you, of course, like your spelling and punctuation, looks for plagiarism and all those sort of things, just to make you a better writer and better communicator. That one was Grammarly. Number 4, this one is Word Swag. This is an app. I'm not sure if it's available on Android. Didn't look that up, but it is available on your iPhone, iPad. And this is a really awesome app. People think sometimes that I'm a graphic designer, and I'm definitely not. And with Word Swag, you can either import a picture or grab any picture in there. They have thousands of pictures you can choose from. And what it does is you have a picture, and you can add any type of message on top of that. And they have all these different fonts and styles of how you can write it, and it just really makes engaging images with, an encouraging saying or a famous quote on there. And people really like to interact with that on social media. So that's Word Swag, and I think that'd be very fun to use in schools. Number 5 is 2 apps, again, for the iPhone. Not sure if it's available on Android. But these 2 apps that I'm going to introduce here are HeadSpace and Calm. But with HeadSpace and Calm, the reason I like these 2 apps is that a lot of schools and a lot of folks are focusing on mindfulness. And so this just teaches people, like adults or your students, how to meditate. And I think there's a lot of value in that, and just hitting the pause button, recalibrating, decreasing our stress levels. And HeadSpace and Calm are 2 great apps that walk you through how to meditate. The last app recommendation that I have for you, and this app is awesome. I'm in love with. If I could marry an app, it would be Evernote. And that's because it's just so feature rich. And you can get clippings from the web, all the notes that you compose, all the pictures that you take with your phone. All these things can be saved and organized so neatly in Evernote. They like to have people organized through what they call notebooks. But really, the ninja hack with Evernote is to use tags and to definitely tag a note with multiple tags, because in Evernote, you can only have one note be a part of one notebook. But with tags, I could have that have 5, 6. I don't want to go crazy with it, but it's much more feature-rich if you use the tags, and that's Evernote.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bauer. definitely go and check out the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast. It is a really fun show, and Dano does a great job. Next up, from the early morning, from the BFC 530 chat, good New Jersey friend of mine, Mr. Eric Fieldman. Eric, what do you got?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chris Nessie. This is Eric Fieldman in New Jersey. Wishing you a happy holiday season. I want to get back to you to tell you, I am delinquent in not getting back to you soon to tell you how awesome the podcasts have been. Certainly as of late, though, always. Your talk with Natalie and Jen, they've really been great, enlightening, and they helped the workout in the gym in the morning go much better. I also wanted to drop in a hack and an app that we've been using here at Collinswood High School. It actually started with Dan Whalen, our tech coach, who introduced Slack to the faculty, and we now have a number of Slack channels, and the faculty can communicate back and forth with each other, and it's been a really helpful tool. Recommend it very highly. Keep up the good work, and see you in the morning.
Absolutely, Eric. If you're not joining the BFC 530 chat, hashtag BFC 530 on Twitter, you got to check it out. You're a teacher. You probably get up early. It's a really cool chat. And as for your recommendation, Eric, of Slack, it's something that I've started to play with this year, and it's something I hope to do a lot more with in 2016, personally, professionally, and here on the podcast. Next up, Josh Hanlon.
Hi, I'm Josh Hanlon, a resident of South Jersey and an educational technology coordinator outside of Philadelphia. Here to call House of EdTech and let you know my favorite app that I like to use. I'm really passionate about productivity. So I love Wunderlist, and I would highly recommend it. It's great if you're like me and you're touching multiple devices during the day. If you're on your phone 1 minute, your tablet your next, and at your laptop the next. It syncs across all your devices. It's a great to-do list. You can check things off. It connects to your Google account, which is awesome. And like I said, it's going to really help out with productivity. So I would suggest definitely checking it out. It's got a great user interface. So I'm happy to recommend that. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at Hanlon, Hanlon JD. That's at Hanlon JD. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Josh. I am a Wunderlist user. I use it on the computer, and I also use it on my iPad. There was a point this year where I started to mess around with Google Keep, and I still have that on the iPad. I'm still playing with it, but primarily I use Wunderlist to do all my productivity, my lists, my organizing, my to-dos, and that's something I use professionally, and I also use it personally. So thank you for your recommendation and your contribution. Next up, this is very exciting. I was excited the first time I got somebody who clicked the SpeakPipe button on chrisnessie.com and sent some audio feedback. And this one was the second time I got really excited because Paula is from Spain. So I definitely know I have at least one international listener. So Paula, thank you so much, and take it away.
Hello, Chris. This is Paula from Barcelona, sunny Spain. I wanted to let you know how much I enjoy your podcast and how much it's helping me. You can check out my webpage at www.misspaulasclass.com. And the app I wanted to recommend for your Smackdown is IF. I'm usually running around like a headless chicken. I can use all the help we can get. And this app has these recipes that connect to your resources. So, for instance, I've got a recipe set up so that every time my boss sends me an email to my Gmail account, that actually connects to my pushover account and I get a special notification. You can also connect your Instagram account to your Dropbox account, for instance, or a specific Gmail emails to your Evernote. So it's great, loads of help for the busy rhythm of a teacher. Hope it helps many other teachers over there. Thanks again, and Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas to you, Paula. And again, thank you so much for sending in your contribution. And If is an awesome app. It's part of If This Then That, and that's something I use. Actually, If This Then That is the main piece of technology behind the Education Podcast Network website, and I do use it to automate some tweets and things for myself. So it is very cool. If you're not using If This Then That, or the If app, or the Do app, which is another one, go and check those out and let me know what you think. And moving along here in the App Smackdown, let's bring back in Mr. Brent Warner.
Hey, Chris, this is Brent Warner at EdTech TV again. There is a game app called the Grading Game, and I never would have thought that I would have wanted to grade papers on my off time, but somehow this game has made it fun and engaging for me. There's what it does is it puts up basically a sheet of paper with all sorts of little grammar mistakes, and you go through and you scan and you cross out the mistakes on the game, and then it times you and it challenges you to get better at it. And it sounds absolutely awful, and I don't even know why I tried it out the first time, but after I did, I found myself quickly addicted to this game. So if you're a grammar nerd, if you are an English teacher, any of those sorts, you may find it really fun and addicting, and people might ask you, why are you grading papers when they're not even your papers? But I really recommend it for just a little bit of a brain challenge and a little bit of a downtime for yourself. So that's called the Grading Game, and it's available for iOS. I don't know if it's available for any other systems, but check it out. It is a lot of fun.
Thank you for that, Brent. And to be honest, we can always use a little bit more fun here in the world of education. So thank you, and we will hear from Brent one more time in the Smackdown a little bit later on. Next up, let's bring him back, Derek Larson.
Hey everybody, it's Derek Larson again from edtechbabble.net. Just want to chime in with another tip. Here's a great tip for you. How do we keep up with all of our educational colleagues and continue learning and growing? Well, Twitter's been a big piece of my life, but a new app's taken over this year, and that's Voxer. Voxer is like it turns your phone into a walkie-talkie, basically allowing you to listen to people whenever you want, because it's not just a walkie-talkie, it's asynchronous, meaning that if I leave you a message, you don't have to hear it right away unless you have the app open. Next time you open up the app, you'll see that there's a message. You can listen to it. You can hear my voice. You can hear my intonation. You can hear all the pieces that make communication amazing. And then you can respond when you have a moment. And suddenly I can hear it when I have a moment to listen. It's a great way to have a discussion with a single friend. What's even better is that there are Voxer groups all over the place. Jump in there and see if we can find some great tools, learn from each other in a little more personalized manner than just Twitter. I have nothing against Twitter. I still use Twitter regularly, but Voxer's become my go-to for personalized professional development. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Derek. And Voxer is a tremendous app. If you're not on Voxer, you should really try it out. Get yourself an account. It's free. It's easy. And who doesn't like a walkie-talkie app? It's really cool. I can attribute a lot of my success this year to Voxer in terms of keeping up with things professionally, being able to connect with like-minded people, things like the Ed Justice League. You know, those are 5 people who were in a Voxer group. I can reach out to my friends and talk to them anytime that I need to, and they're going to be there to support me as I am for them. And it's also made a difference personally. Caitlin uses it. Caitlin has then spread it to some of her girlfriends and people that she talks to, and that's made a difference for her. So it is a powerful app. It's free. You can get the pro and the premium features, but just try it out. You have nothing to lose, yet so much to gain through the power of voice. Thank you, Derek, for sharing Voxer with the House of EdTech. Next up, Jamie Cook.
Hi, Mr. Nessie. My name is Jamie Cook. I'm a technology teacher resource specialist for K-3 schools in West Windsor, Plainsboro, New Jersey. Most of our classrooms have 4 to 5 iPads per room. And my House of EdTech recommendation is the Seesaw app. It's a student digital portfolio which allows students to take charge of collecting their own work and uploading it to their personal portfolio online. Teachers, parents, as well as their fellow students access to view and comment on their work. It shows up in a news feed similar to Facebook where they can like and make comments and tag each other. They can upload anything from their camera roll, and then they can annotate it, do voiceovers, They can create videos, pictures, drawings, and there's also many, many apps that allow direct uploads to Seesaw. So it's a great tool for students to keep track of their work, whether it's digital or not, and also for teachers to use as an assessment piece. So it's free and it's in the App Store, and my teachers here love it.
Thank you so much for sharing Seesaw, Jamie. I've looked at that a little bit this year here in 2015, and it is a very hot app. I think it's going to make an even bigger impact in 2016, and I could see something like Seesaw being in the EdTech Final Four come March 2016. So we will see what happens with that. Next up is Miss Stephanie Hessline from Middletown, New Jersey, and I can say that I've had the pleasure of collaborating with Stephanie over the past year and during the summer to help to create EdCamp Jersey Shore, which was my first foray this year into really being a part of organizing an EdCamp. I'm also involved with EdCamp New Jersey overall, but I digress. I apologize. Let's stay on track. Stephanie, take it away.
One of my favorite apps is called VideoFX Live. It's a free app that has such great possibilities in the classroom, and in my opinion, it's more of like a friendly alternative to iMovie app. It's appropriate for all grade levels. Last year I used it with my 5th graders. This year I used it with my 1st graders, and they love it because of all the different filters that they can use. Students can use this app really to bring any of their learning to life. And best of all, you can upload student videos to YouTube right from the app.
Yes, you can totally do this. I checked out VideoFX. That's the letter F, letter X, VideoFX Live. And it's a really cool app. Thank you so much for sharing it. I hadn't yet heard of it. And because of Stephanie, I was able to kind of play around with it. And her message got cut off, so I did want to share her Twitter handle so you can connect with Stephanie. And her Twitter name is Miss Hessline, MISSHESSLEIN. Thanks again, Stephanie. I really appreciate your contribution. And for the final time, here is Brent Warner.
Hey, Chris, this is Brent Warner at EdTech TV. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to suggest for the App Smackdown Trello. For those who haven't used it, Trello is kind of like a project management system, very much like putting Post-it notes up on the wall and moving it from section to section as you're moving through a project. I use it a lot for my blog and for my podcast, but I also think it has great applications for teachers. You can share the boards with other people, and you can put projects in place and really visualize things really easily. And Trello is free for the basic version of it, so for most teachers that's totally going to take, you're not going to need anything extra than the free version. So I really, really suggest Trello, looking into it for people who want to save a little bit of time and organize their projects that might have, several stages to it. So that's Trello, TRELLO.com. And Chris, as a side note, I'm going to send you a couple more. I don't know the best way to do it if you want to say hey again or whatever, but I'm going to send you a couple more of these, so hold tight.
Thank you, Brent. And again, I can't stress it enough. Make sure you go and check out edtech.tv, and also be sure to check out Brent's podcast, the edtech.tv podcast. And next up, as we are beginning to round third and head for home here on the 2015 House of EdTech App Smackdown, I'm going to be bringing on here Jennifer Gonzalez. She is a fellow podcaster. She hosts the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, which is also a member of the Education Podcast Network. Jennifer, what do you got?
Hey, House of EdTech. This is Jennifer Gonzalez. I do the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, and I have a website by the same name called The Cult of Pedagogy. Actually, there is no the. It's just Cult of Pedagogy. And you can find me on Twitter at Cult of Pedagogy, PEDAGOGY. Okay, here is the app I would love to talk about. It's so simple, and I think a lot of teachers could use it as a support for instruction, not necessarily for instruction itself. It is called Noisely. It's N as in Nancy, OISLI. And here's what it does. It's basically an advanced white noise machine First of all, it's beautiful. You go to the site and the colors of it change constantly. You have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. But the premise of this app is very simple. You choose your own personal combination of white noise sounds. So you can have things that you would find like on a white noise machine, like the sounds of the ocean or the sounds of a river. But it also has some other things that you might not expect, like a crackling fire, the sounds of a cafe. It also has rain, which I think you would also find on noise machines. But the nice thing is that you can combine them and you can adjust the levels. My favorite combination is to turn on the cafe sound. I think it's cafe or coffee shop, because I like to work in coffee shops. And so the sounds of the murmur of other people's conversations and dishes sort of clanging in the kitchen. And it just, for some reason, it really helps me work. So when I'm sitting at my desk working, I will turn on Noisely on a separate tab, and I will turn on the cafe sounds plus rain, as if it's raining outside. And I'll also put on a little bit of the crackling fire. So it's almost like I'm sitting in a nice coffee shop by a fireplace where it's raining outside. And I can actually make any of those sounds louder or quieter to my liking. I also think it would be lovely if you have students working independently on like laptops or devices and they don't want to hear what else is going on in the classroom. They can pick their own combination of sounds and put on a set of earbuds, and it can help them just, all work independently without as many distractions. So it's Noisely, NOISLI.com. And again, this is Jennifer Gonzalez from Cult of Pedagogy. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing about all the other apps in the Smackdown.
Thank you, Jennifer. When I first got this bit of audio from her, I immediately went to check this out, and I've been using Noisely. I've been making a lot of homemade gifts this holiday season as I work in the makerspace of EdTech, also known as my garage, and I've been using the app connected to my stereo, using some of this ambient noise while I'm doing work on some projects. So thank you so much for sharing, Jennifer. I've gotten a lot out of it, and I hope you do too as well. I think that sounds right. So we have two more pieces of audio left here in the 2015 App Smackdown. This next one comes from Kimberly Howell Martin. I want to apologize in advance. This audio was a little choppy, and I cleaned this up as best I could. So I do apologize in advance if this hurts your ears, but the content is good. I just want to apologize for the audio quality.
Hey, Chris. It's Kimberly Howell Martin down in Daytona again. I had another couple of apps that I really love to use with students in the Media Center, in large part because they're really simple and clean to use, and it allows students to add their voice to projects. The first one is Puppet Edu. It's a great way for students to create digital stories. They can make them fiction, nonfiction. They can take pictures and tell about things that they're doing in the curriculum. So it's a well-rounded app that could be used throughout curriculum, not just in the Media Center. And then the other one is Explain Everything. And again, it is an app that's really good for adding student voice to projects. Students can solve math problems and explain how they worked out their solutions, and then they can share with classmates so students get a different view of how everybody approaches math. It's also great for explaining their thoughts on topics in science and social studies. So Puppet Edu and Explain Everything, two great apps to use in school.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kimberly. I really appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to connect with you during BFC 530 and other times on Twitter. You may have noticed that Kim mentioned that was like her second submission. The first one, I did the best I could to try and clean it up, but I just couldn't get that piece of audio to work. So I'm sorry, Kim, but thank you for submitting two pieces of audio, but unfortunately only one could make it into the episode. Now, last but certainly not least, my good friend Chrissy Romano Arabito, the late entry into this year's App Smackdown. Thank you so much in advance, Chrissy. Now, time for you to share.
This is Chrissy Romano Arabito. You can find me on Twitter at theconnectededu or on the web at www.theconnectededucator.com. Here's my submission for the 2015 App Smackdown for the House of EdTech. Quizalize is a quick and easy to use formative assessment tool that can be used on any device across any subject area. Kids sign into the site quiz.al with their name and a game pin, very similar to Kahoot. Then they get randomly assigned to a team. It has a live game view that can be projected onto a larger screen for the whole class to see. As students answer questions, their playing piece moves closer to the finish line, and they earn points for their team. There's a real-time dashboard where you can instantly see who needs help, and it also breaks them down into categories for the teachers to see specifically who needs the help. Reports can measure strengths and weaknesses by topic. All in all, it's a fun and engaging alternative to Kahoot and Socrative. Kids had a blast practicing their spelling words using it.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. And when you shared this with me, I went to check it out. It is a really awesome and easy to use website. So that's the House of EdTech Smackdown here in 2015. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed. Thank you to you for listening. And we do have one more thing to do before we close out this episode. So let's move on over to the House of EdTech VIP. And this episode's House of EdTech VIP, for the second consecutive year, and this is the first time there's a repeat VIP, it's you. Thank you for listening to the House of EdTech podcast. Thank you for making me a part of your routine, whether it's mowing the lawn, driving to work, sitting on your prep, or anywhere else that you're consuming this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Whether you're a patron or you're not a patron, whether you've left a review or you haven't, those things are great, and you could never do them, but because you're listening, that is what I really appreciate. You're giving me an outlet for my voice and my views, and you're taking time to consume the content and hear other people's stories in addition to my own opinion and thoughts that I sprinkle in. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech and the 2015 House of EdTech App Smackdown. Thank you again to everybody who contributed something to this episode. I really appreciate the people who participated, and I appreciate you for listening to the episode. Now, keep the conversation going. Visit my website, chrisnesi.com. That's CHRISNESI.com. And go check out the show notes for this episode, number 51. The show notes will contain all the links and all the information shared today by everybody who participated. I'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information in the apps shared in this episode. If there's an app you'd like to share, throw it in the comments, or send me a piece of audio and I can include it in a later episode as a House of EdTech recommendation. On the website, you can also click Share Feedback. That's going to give you my email address and all the ways to connect with me. The fastest way to reach me is through Twitter. My username is Mr. Nessie, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech. If you enjoyed this episode of the House of EdTech, I'd like you to do two things. Number one, go tell somebody. That's right, just go and tell somebody else about the podcast, another teacher in your department, another teacher you connected with on Twitter, or somebody who you think just might enjoy the content and find me entertaining. That'd be really cool. The second thing you can do is to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Your positive rating and an honest review will help to keep the House of EdTech front and center for other people to discover and enjoy. And you can also show your support through patreon.com. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/House of EdTech. Now, I'm putting this episode together a little bit differently, so I know, because I'm looking at a clock, there's about a minute left on the outro music. Starting 2016 and to finish this year, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. Episode 52 is going to come out on January 17th, 2016. So I'm taking 3 weeks off. It's time to focus on family, enjoy the Christmas holiday, enjoy New Year's. It's going to be fun. When I come back in January, right out of the gate, I'm going to be bringing on the lovely, the wonderful, my wife, Caitlin Nessie, for her second appearance. And we're going to be talking about some awesome, useful information to start the new year. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.